All right, we're back again. Topic that I know you and I both care a lot about today, and I think a lot of people in the world are feeling the pain of. And I'm just going to start by leading you with a question. If you got laid off today and you needed to replace your income ASAP, where would you start?
Oh man, I would go to the most immediate demand of my skills, whatever they are. I would, and I know that's obviously extremely vague, but I get my main point is I would, in a situation like we're in, global pandemic, I need to be bringing in income. I do not let my ego get in the way, and I go where the money is.
What? So does anything change about your job hunting process now, like versus less urgent circumstances? What are those? How do you approach it differently?
Yeah, so I think, if you're in a less urgent situation, that just means you have an opportunity to be a little bit more selective. You can probably take your time with pursuing or identifying and then targeting the more like long-term opportunities. And when you're in a situation like we're in right now with COVID-19 pandemic, I think it just, like you said, it increases the urgency. So you can't be as picky. And I think it places most importance on you being able to create your own sense of optimism about the job hunt itself, as well as what future opportunities are going to come out of landing something maybe less than ideal short term.
Yep. I think that's right. So I want to drill into some of this deeper. And some of this is like I have questions that are both observational. Some of it's like looking at LinkedIn right now, looking at different job postings, looking at chatter online about how people are approaching this and what other like experts are saying. And it's also kind of thinking about context of the same challenges people face in a normal circumstance. Like 6-9 months ago, people on the job hunt, the common hurdles they have. And so what I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on are what are the tactical steps today that you should take given the circumstances? And which ones of those are universally relevant? Like you should do this all the time. These are just good success habits on the job hunt, whether there's a pandemic or not. And which of these are like, this is a time relevant tactic that don't worry about this if you're on the job hunt when everything's normal.
Yeah. So I think most of this is really, these are all fundamentals to job hunting when whatever time you're doing it. And when you're in a more urgent situation, the execution of them becomes even more important. I think the biggest change from a more urgent situation is really speed. Because if the job market overall is contracting, then that means there's less opportunities and there's more job seekers. And to like take advantage, like to have first mover advantage is more important on a job posting itself. So yeah, let's go through some fundamentals first that apply across the board. I think there's a few things. So I think there's it's a skill to be able to source the right opportunities for yourself.
Yeah.
And let's talk about like early career job seekers. I think one of their biggest pain points isn't necessarily that they don't have a lot of specific skills that they could, that are obvious and can add value to a company. Although that's certainly true to some degree. I think their biggest disadvantage is that early career job seekers, they don't have a lot of context of the entire career landscape, and therefore what opportunities are a good fit for them out in the world right now. And I think they kind of see opportunities as like, all right, these are and there's one batch of opportunities that I'm clearly qualified for, but I'm trying to move away from. It's restaurant, service jobs, anything.
Not the career job that I'm looking for.
Yeah, anything that you think of like, hey, I could do this job through high school, through college, or something part-time. And then I think, this is simplifying things, but then they see jobs that they really would love to have, but require, X amount of experience, years of experience, very specific skills, very specific skills that you need to have that they haven't had time to build yet. And it's harder for them to identify like, what are those stepping stone opportunities, those like bridge opportunities to set them up to get to where they want to be 3 to 5 years from now.
Yeah. I think you triggered me too. I think a function of both of those, not to cut you off, is also how terrible job postings are.
Yep. Totally.
Like, I think that a lot of the things that people, the attributes of a type of job that somebody wants, let's forget about what function in a company or what type of company it's in. Like somebody who says, I like to work with people. I like to help people. I like to have a lot of interaction with other people, helping them solve their problems. Like that, no job posting says that. Like you can't, if you don't have any context, if you don't have any context for job titles and what those job titles entail, I don't know how you even go about doing that in a really like time sensitive manner, like figuring out what are the job roles that even map to the things that I'm interested in.
Yeah. If we're starting from scratch, if I'm a job seeker, I think the two things that I want to know about an opportunity are what type of person is able to succeed in this role, like from, like as they have it. And then the people who do well in those roles, what do they go on to do beyond that specific role? Because now like it's helping me think through like, okay, like I either am this type of person, like I have these traits that's going to be a good fit for this role or not. And if you can describe that, if you can communicate that in a way that's actually useful and not in the bullshit bullet points that you normally see under requirements and like nice to haves on job descriptions, that would be nice. And then I think, for those entry level positions, a lot of them, if you just describe bluntly, like, hey, you're going to be making 80 cold calls a day as a sales development rep. Like that's hard to get excited about. But if you can paint a picture of people that are able to bust their ass for, 6 to 24 months, making 80 cold calls a day, not get burnt out, and are actually able to put in the work, these are the types of things they go on to do in the future. Now my motivation for spending that amount of time doing more of the grunt work is going to be that much higher. As I'm thinking this through, I wonder if I think sometimes job descriptions can serve a purpose of like shit testing candidates in a way, like, all right, like we're not going to make this sound as sexy as it possibly can be. But I think that's being
Yeah.
overly charitable.
That-
I think, most companies could do a much better job of getting buy-in from the right
Yeah.
type of.
That's probably right, but they probably universally err too far in that direction.
Right.
Yeah. Like the sometimes when I read job postings and it's like, this company is really hot on itself and is making zero effort to convince somebody why they should work there.
Yeah.
And there is probably some give and take. So I don't want to get too off track on that. But here's where I'm interested in getting your thoughts on. So say you are that person, you're early in your career, maybe you don't have that first really meaningful milestone career job yet, but you have some hospitality experience and you're out of a job right now.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to figure out where your skills are valuable, and you're starting on Indeed.com or jobs boards. What steps do you take to go find jobs that are a good fit? What research do you do? What resources do you turn to? Like, what's that process of trying to educate yourself in the goal of identifying opportunities?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think in any like economic recessions, there are going to be certain sectors of the economy that are actually growing. And so I would start there, like given whatever circumstances the economy's in, that the job market's contracting, figure out what parts of the economy are actually growing or at minimum, not nearly as, negatively impacted as other parts of the country or the economy. And, we're in an interesting situation right now where pretty much everything's being impacted. Like this is like nothing we've ever really have experienced. Certainly in our lifetime, certainly in pretty much everybody's lifetime at this point. But there are areas that you just, even if you don't even have to do a ton of research, if you can kind of just think through the simple version of this yourself, like, okay, because of the situation we're in, everybody's at home right now. That means workers, if you're able to continue working, you're working remotely. That increases demand for online tools that allow you to work remotely more successfully. Pretty much all K through 12 and higher education has moved online as well. So what are the industries and types of services and products that are going to be in more demand now? And going back to my original point of like, hey, not being as selective, like if you need something quick to hold yourself over for 3 to 6 months or some period of time, like grocery stores, CVS, convenience stores, food app delivery, all that type of stuff. Amazon, because there's more shipping happening, more delivery happening, all those types of jobs, those larger companies, they're hiring like crazy now. So if I was somebody that, if I was working at a restaurant and I got laid off because of that, I would immediately be like, okay, I can go walk over to the CVS on the corner and apply right there.
Yeah.
And, maybe you're going to still take a decrease in pay, but, going from 100% of your pay was to 75% instead of 0% is obviously a better situation for you.
Oh yeah. Well, and that doesn't mean you have to stop looking for other jobs too. Like I think that the advantage of going and taking, for lack of a better term, a holdover job is that it buys you more time, but two, like turnover is already high there. Like those people,
right.
those segments of like,
they're not looking for you to sign a 2-year commitment.
Yeah. Like if you're leaving a career job to go and fill that. Like that's a stopgap. And I think personally, I know if I had to go do something like that right now, where I was in a situation where I'd make that choice, I think that spurs a little urgency on me. Like I want to go get back on track, but also like I can't go a month without income. Like whatever I need to get. I think you brought up a good point though. Like even before you ask those questions, it's probably a appraise your situation and come up with a new budget. Like what do you have to have to get by right now? How much time do you have? Like what's the urgency of this? Because when you start thinking about, forget the pandemic for a second, let's just think about normal hiring statistics. I think the averages last time I read are somewhere between like 40 and 90 days to get hired. And that's like your average professional, whatever company. That's a long time to go without, that time plus 2 weeks is a long time to go without your first paycheck. And I'm also curious, you're a hiring manager. What are you more impressed by? Like what is a more compelling story for you when that person is in the interview and it comes up that they got laid off, that they've been unemployed for 60 days, whatever it is, or listen, I didn't want to lose momentum. I went and got whatever job I could just to hold over because I don't want to just make poor use of my time. I got to be making money. I mean, I'm talking myself in a circle here because there's also the thing is like, if you don't go find another job, you have more time to commit to the job hunt process too. So there's some give and take there.
Yeah. I mean, in tougher times, like, I think you just have to figure out a way to do both, like the people that are going to be scrappy and like be able to figure things out on their own are going to be better off than anybody that has anything resembling, like a victim mentality with everything. It's easy. Like I think that's the other benefit of getting something short term is like at minimum, it's a distraction from just like feeling down that you were laid off and you're looking for your next opportunity. Like, let's not kid. Like, it's a stressful, intimidating process. You're going to go through periods of feeling, self-defeated and down on yourself. And it's hard to do, 9 to 5 every single day for 30 days, 60 days of pure job hunting. If it were me, I think I would prefer to have to, go out and get something short term, just from a personal psychological standpoint.
Well, everything is easier when you've got some type of optionality, like you've got a fallback plan. Mm-hmm. And even if the job sucks, like even if you have to go take a holdover job, something about having something that forces you to get out of bed and go do something, forces you to maybe feel a little bit of shame. Like whether, I'm not making any moral assessments of whether one job is good or not, but like if you have a job that you're kind of like, I got to go figure something else out, like that's some urgency. But also the fact that if you're making some money, it's a little bit easier to keep your head held high than if you're at home and everything feels like a loss. Like on those hard days where you don't hear back from somebody, it's a tough process to go through. So I want to dig in a little bit more on pandemic or not. I think it's a great exercise in your career. Maybe always, but definitely while you're still trying to figure out what you want to do longer term. It's like every 3 to 6 months, I usually try and ask myself, like, what would I do if I had to replace my income tomorrow? As a way of like trying to get really clear about the things I feel like I'm good at and the things that I enjoy doing, and just kind of taking an inventory of the tool chest or whatever. Let's just pretend people have a little bit more context for where those skills are useful. Like you're not still trying to figure out what job titles map well to my existing skills or whatever. You've already got that level of clarity. What are the first principles, like those fundamentals that that you need to get right in order to increase your likelihood of landing interviews, getting hired? Like what are the tactics, the actual job hunting approaches, from landing on a job board and finding an opportunity you're interested in through whatever happens?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is the ability to tailor your pitch to whatever company you're looking to work for as much as you possibly can. I think the biggest difference, this is something that we work on at Praxis. The thing that can separate you is putting in as much effort and value add into your pitch as a candidate as you would if you actually landed the job and you were starting that role. Treating your job hunt as if you're going to conduct it with the same commitment, work ethic, effort that you would the actual job is huge. Like your job hunt is a job. Good. You're working for yourself, and it's a sales job. That's what it is. Your job is to sell yourself as a candidate to the company to do a specific job for them.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's your audition. I always like to think of it that way, and I think that useful change in framing makes it a little bit easier than just like I'm blasting these things out into the black box universe and hoping I hear back. Like I'm on trial right now. I got to prove that I'm valuable.
Yeah, and I think most people, they approach an application process and the hiring process thinking about like, okay, what are the specific hoops that I need to jump through that are part of this hiring process? Like I need to be good at the hiring process, as opposed to how can I prove to this company, to this team, to this individual hiring decision maker that I'm going to be a great fit for this particular role?
Yeah, that's a good one. I want to come back to that because you mentioned something about like when you're talking about tailoring pitches. I want to dig into that a little bit more. What does that mean, and what does it look like done well? Tailoring your pitch. Is it, obviously not using dear sir or madam, maybe is it using the company's name? Like what are the steps that you take or that you've seen have to be really successful? Like this person went all out tailoring their, whatever, their job application or whatever they send me.
Yeah. So let's lay out like, what does the typical application process look like? Usually you're going to find a job on a jobs board, or like you already know what companies you're interested in. So you go right to their careers page, you land on their job posting. It gives you summary, requirements, what the job's all about. And then it's going to lead you to an actual application page. That application page, it's going to request basic contact information. It's going to request resume, cover letter, and if you're lucky, it will have, a handful of specific questions that they ask you. Yeah. And then you're going to put all that information in, click the submit button. You're going and then you're just going to stop, and you're going to wait until your application gets fed into their application tracking system. If it's a larger company, they probably have some type of automatic filter for that first review where they're looking for like keywords on a resume, and they have it dialed in. It's extremely, it's the opposite of a human touch point, or they have some type of, entry level recruiter position whose job is to go through applications submitted. So most people, if they're on the job hunt, they're trying to just find as many potential jobs that they would be willing to do and get as many resumes and applications submitted as possible with as minimal effort as possible. They are emphasizing quantity over quality.
Click here to easy apply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we talk about like, okay, how can you tailor a pitch as a candidate for a company? There's a few basic things you can do. One is somebody who's able to articulate in an above average way why they want to work for this particular company and why they want to be in this particular role, and what are the top 2 or 3 things that makes them a good fit, and that show like, hey, here's how I can be valuable in this particular role. You're ahead of the game 90% right there. And that is something, if you're smart about it, you can do that by not changing any of the content that they're looking for. You can do a good job of tailoring the traditional resume to that, and then with a cover letter kind of communicate those basic points, or if they have like short essays to answer in an application. So that's level 1, just being able to communicate that information. Level 2 is, I would say, communicate that in a better format than the traditional resume cover letter combination. That could be a landing page that you build out that's essentially like a combination of a digital resume and professional portfolio that's tailored to that specific company. I think, this is something we do a lot of at Praxis, is actually having a video pitch of you talking about those things. And I think that gives that gives 2 things. That signals that you're clearly willing to put more effort in than most people are. And it also gives them the opportunity to get a better sense of who you are as a person. Like, there's just things that can be communicated when you're on screen, speaking a little bit more conversationally, like your personality is going to show through and reveal itself, and you're actually making their job easier, which they will appreciate, because they'll be able to get better information up front. Because like the typical resume just does not give you a lot of information. So if you can kind of you're starting 15% further along in the hiring process, if you can communicate the right type of information in the right format and then get it in front of the right person.
Yep. And if you start thinking about what are the creative ways that I could put my personality on display, like the marketer in me is coming alive when you say landing page or thing like that, where if you start thinking about this company as a potential customer of you, like what kind of crazy things could you do to get somebody's attention, that if they go click, they open your email or application or whatever, and they go click the link that you send them. Like, there's so many endless crazy things. My favorite one all time is still Nina for Airbnb, Airbnb.com. Like, when she built this incredible landing page case study, like did all this ridiculous research, built this PR campaign. Like, go check out Nina for Airbnb if you want to see like the absolute most extreme example that I've ever seen. That's just highly effective. So personalization, you can do a little bit of legwork. That gets you way farther ahead. Take it to the absolute next level, shoot a video, do something that clearly puts your personality on display, gives more context for who you are, helps you get farther along in the hiring process. So those are ways to stand out. Now I want to go back to the actual job application itself. You're on the job description. Maybe you've taken all these steps. You've got some cool stuff prepped and ready to send. When do you follow the rules and when do you break them on what it says in terms of like how to apply?
Yeah. So the way I think the best way to look at it is you want to follow the rules in the sense of this company is seeking better information that, they want to know, like, hey, are you somebody that we would be excited to hire? Like, that's the rule, and then that's their primary question that they're trying to get an answer for. And then they set things up with the goal of making it as easy as possible to answer that question. And your job as a candidate is to help them answer that question as easily as possible. And so, okay, let's talk about this practically. Usually they're requesting a PDF resume upload, a cover, maybe a cover letter upload, or maybe that's optional, and then basic information. And they might ask you like one or two questions like, hey, why do you want to work here? What makes you a good fit for this? And then maybe something about like their company culture that kind of tells them something. So what I would recommend is that don't think about like, okay, I'm going to not do that for the sake of not doing it because I want to be different. But that's the very bare minimum, and you should not do the bare minimum. So if they're trying to find out, do you have the experience, skills, traits that we want to hire for? And they think they can at least get a sense of that through asking for this basic information. I would just approach it as, okay, what is the best version of communicating this information look like? If it's some type of like essay question of like, why do you want to work at this company? I guarantee you it's not, answering that with a 2 to 3 sentence remark about, hey, I love that this, what your product does. And I've always dreamed as a little boy of working at a company just like yours. That is a signal to you as a candidate to go research that company, dig in, figure out how can you communicate like interest in their company that goes beyond what you can find on the homepage of their website. And then like from a formatting perspective, like, hey, something as simple as like, hey, I wrote a blog post about, why I'm interested in your company, which details, how your company got started. I think that's a really cool story, the founding story, how you guys kind of differentiate your company from its competitors. And, I went and researched and found all these customer reviews of how excited they are about your product that they give you. And I detail all of that in a blog post on my personal website. Here's a link, go check it out. Like that's following the rules. And you're literally putting something in that text box and you're literally answering that question, but you're 10xing the information you're communicating, and you're 10xing, you're revealing the work ethic you're willing to put into this.
Yeah. Just because there's a text box doesn't mean you have to write a paragraph.
Right.
You can get creative. And I think that this is a fun trail to go down. So I think there are so many ways beyond that. You could probably get even more creative. Your imagination is your limit, and also maybe use some good judgment here, but your budget and other constraints or whatever. But there are countless ways to go get attention.
Yeah.
And you obviously, if you're getting attention, you want there to be some substance too. You don't want to draw attention to like, let me do something that breaks the rules, and I didn't really put a ton of effort into it, so I look even worse now. So let's talk about some favorite tactics. I've got a couple. I'll give you a second to think about them, but I'm going to think there are two, and I have clever names for them because I love these. I love thinking about this kind of things. But my first one is called the Trojan Horse. I've seen people do this and I think it's awesome. And there's so many different imaginative ways and examples I've seen that are really cool, but it's mailing something to the company, like especially if you can go figure out or make a really educated guess about who the right person is, like the hiring manager itself. And if not, like send it to the company, attention to hiring manager for X.
Yeah.
Like,
and real quickly on that, like the easiest way to try to find the best person at the company to be reaching out to, like just use LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And go to that company's profile. They're going to like pretty much every employee there is going to be associated with that company. You can click on their employers list and employees list and figure it out. Like you can get pretty far on your own, and then being able to like find that person's email, like doesn't just think through it a little bit. I know like if you're new to the job market, a lot of this stuff isn't as familiar, but just use some critical thinking ability of like, okay, how can I actually find people that work at this company? All right.
Yep. And then mail them something. Like be a little bit intentional about what this is. Maybe this is difficult right now if people are all working remotely, but you could take this to a creepy level. Let's not recommend that. Like finding the hiring manager's home address may be a little bit creepy if you don't already know that.
Okay. Like the digital version is you can reach out to them.
Yeah.
And send like
on a different platform,
send them an email or reach out to them on their social profiles or LinkedIn or Twitter. Like there's ways to get around it that don't require mailing them something physical.
So
go ahead.
There's that. And then, okay, I'm going to do 3 actually. Cause this is the best execution of this I've seen is a 3-step process. It's the Trojan Horse. So you find, maybe you find the hiring manager and say they're the VP of sales or whatever. And you find a really highly rated sales book. If you don't already have a favorite sales book, you mail that to them and either put your resume in it or put a letter you wrote them or whatever, something that like helps them attach who sent this to the application you sent. So that's the first one. The second one is I call the snappy pickup line. This is where I've seen it done really well is you include just a short kind of witty note that ties the whole thing together. Off the top of my head, something right now, like I would send a roll, like a package of toilet paper and say, this may be in short supply, but talent's not, or something like that. Like something that gets their attention, makes them laugh. And it's not about being clever or whatever. It's about giving them some physical artifact that's like, I now have to go, I almost owe this person a response now because they did this. And here's step 3 is, honey, did you get my flowers? You call the next day or call like an hour after you know that package has been delivered and check that they got it. Like, yes, if you know that it was delivered, use that as your in to get in touch with the person. And this doesn't always work, but the people I know who have done something similar like this get a response. And it's a fun one usually.
Yep. And the impression, if you execute that well, the impression they're going to have, and this is what you're trying to go for, is, wow, this person really wants to work here.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's good enough. Like if you can initiate that emotion, that term right there, that's usually 9 times out of 10, it will get you your foot in the door. They're going to, like you said, they're going to feel like a sense of obligation of like reaching back out to you. And usually it will lead to at least an interview. And now you get to focus on, hey, I'm actually a good fit and I can add
foot's
value.
in the door. That's the hardest part, getting your foot in the door. So I'm going to give you a chance. Favorite tactics.
I think so. Here's a framework and then I'll give an example. I ultimately think what you're trying to do in the hiring process is like, all right, we know MVP, minimum viable product. Like if you have an idea for something, how quickly can you take that idea and turn it into some type of product or service that you can actually, start to offer people? with startups and stuff, or just like young people that are really into entrepreneurship. A lot of them get trapped into like, oh, I have a business idea. I need to get all this funding in order to build my app or something. That's a stereotype of that. So instead of doing that, like think about like, okay, how can I create this thing with the tools and resources that are currently available to me? So as a candidate, I think you want to create yourself as like the minimum viable employee. Like, how can I actually start doing the job that this role does on a day-to-day basis? And one of my favorite examples of this is I've worked with candidates that apply to like customer success reps at software companies. And, the general responsibilities there are being able to help customers or users solve problems that they're having with the product itself. So you need to be able to, one, like have a deeper understanding of how that product works. Two, be able to communicate that understanding to people that are having difficulty with it. Like you're essentially it's actually a really fun role, like we've talked about, because you're in like a teaching role. And then three, you need to have really great customer service communication. You need to exhibit empathy. You need to be quick, and you need to be able to like de-escalate situations. So I think a very simple thing, including in your initial application, like, hey, especially with software companies, because usually there's free trials or demos that you can start to use and get a feel for their product. Do a 3 to 5 minute screen share walkthrough of you actually using their product for something. I was just working with a candidate who's applying to a project management software company. So she put together 3 to 5 minute walkthrough video of how she was using their product to actually organize her job hunt. And then she walked through from like, all right, from sign up all the way through, and like highlighted 3 of their kind of more unique features, and then sent them that video. And so that's going to exhibit like she has a deeper understanding of 99.9% of the candidates out there that, they're not revealing that type of information. And you actually get to see that person on camera. You get a really good sense of their communication skills. And so just to be able to think like, okay, based on the job description, how can I map myself onto that job description? And then what can I actually send them? What can I create that shows how I would be performing this role? And it doesn't need to be perfect, but the way I like to think about it is like, all right, there's 2 to 3 things that are more important than anything else when it comes to hiring for this role. And those are specific skills or specific personal traits that they're looking for. And if you can identify those and then be able to think through like, okay, what's something I can actually build myself that proves that I have those core skills and traits needed to do this job.
Yeah, like making a movie trailer for yourself, like just to simplify it as a mental model.
If it's like a film editing or video editing role at a company, like actually edit some video.
Yeah. I mean, whatever the role is, like you're making a little sneak preview of you actually doing the things that person does on a daily basis, even if it's a very, very simplified version.
Yep.
That's 100 times more effort than most people take.
Exactly.
Yeah. So love that. All right. Wrap this up. Any last final parting words of advice or wisdom, encouragement for people on the job hunt?
Yeah. The final thing is follow up. Like,
huge.
Treat it like a sales process. Once you get that application out the door, like don't sit back and wait. Go find, hey, who's the best person to reach out to personally, and and treat it like a sales process. Like you want to have multiple messages, multiple follow-ups. If somebody's trying to sell you something, they're trying to get in touch with you every few days. Like I think most people are afraid to be
annoying.
Afraid to be annoying, too aggressive. Like that is the least. You should not be worried about that. Like your job is to get an answer one way or another if a company wants to move forward with you. And 9 times out of 10, your persistence will be to your advantage.
Well, yeah. And just to touch on that, and I won't ramble too long, is like a quick hack to do that and set boundaries. So you don't have to guess, am I being annoying or not? Or is ask when you can expect to hear back from them at every process. Like, it's no secret that they're running a hiring process to you or the person on the other side. Take advantage of that and be like, all right, thanks for the great conversation. When can I expect to hear back from you? That's a simple way to establish the boundaries of communication. And if you don't get an answer, like every 48 hours, that's okay. You're either trying to get an answer that you're invited to the next stage, or get them off your list so you can spend that time on another company. So
exactly.
Closing words. Keep heart. Keep heart. It's a process. We'll see you again soon.